Hey, everybody, welcome. I am so excited to be here with my dear friend, Karen Robinson, and trauma recovery expert, owner of Heal, Thrive, Dream. I am so excited to have you here. I'm so excited about your summit that you have coming up. Welcome, welcome to the group and to the page and all those things.
I'm really appreciative that you're hosting me for this. It's a privilege to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Glad to be here. Glad to be doing this. I think that this is stuff we need to be talking about. Um, Everything around trauma, mental health, burnout, those are all important topics that I don't think we talk about enough, just in general as a society. So I'm glad that we are getting the chance to talk about them a bit more.
I'm 1,000% in agreement. And now, like the buzzwords of epigenetics, I think it's even more important to talk
Mhm.
about it. Like if trauma can be stored in our cells, like that is huge. That's still blowing my mind. The more
Mhm.
I research and read and write about it, it's like, why isn't everybody so curious about this?
Right.
It's baffling.
Absolutely. So tell me about this summit that you are doing this week.
Yeah, thanks for asking. And for those in Haley's community that don't know yet, she is a featured speaker. She's going to be an expert speaker. And what she's going to talk about exactly, I don't know. She hasn't shared it yet with me, so it's going to be a surprise. So I hope you come and catch it.
Might be a
So,
surprise to both of us.
so the interesting thing about this summit is that it was a really hard decision to decide between two topics. And so I
Right.
decided to give each one of them a day.
Hmm.
January is National Stalking Awareness Month. So
Hmm.
I decided to do that on Saturday. And for stalking, I think a 1 day summit is okay, you know, and on one hand. When I started to look at literature around stalking, there really isn't much, which deeply surprised me. So that's something that needs to be worked on. I think because there's so much in the trauma field, like it might have gotten lost some, and it's a big problem. And a lot of the survivors I have on the summit, one woman that's telling her story, she was trafficked. So when she talks about stalking in other parts of her life, the trafficking sort of made that like look smaller, except the last event in her stalking story resulted with her sitting on the floor, barricading the door, holding a gun.
Hmm.
So, stalking is pretty damn serious. I'm really happy that I'm, doing a 1 day of it. I think I want to work more on stalking afterwards. I'm not quite sure what that will look like. But the topic that's getting a lot of buzz is transgenerational trauma. And Friday is packed with speakers discussing it. We have survivor stories. We have some self-care exercises so the summit doesn't get too intense. Like I want people to feel taken care of. And I also want the summit to be healing, right? So I don't want it just to be sad story after sad story. I really want people to see that there's hope. I really want them to see that there's women and men too that go through really horrific things, yet by the grace of God, their community, the work that they're doing on themselves, they are healing. So that's what really the summit is about, is to try to inspire hope and resiliency in people. But 1 day to do transgenerational trauma was not my smartest move. So I'd like to admit my mistakes. So it might be recycled back later that we do more work on it in future summits.
I love that. Yeah. And I mean, I think that, we forget or we lose sight of how, a single event can trigger. just such massive downstream trauma. In the blink of an eye, everybody's life has changed.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Never mind, other longer prolonged things that happen, war, famine, those types of things. But for a lot of families, it could be just a single, that one pebble in the pond that causes those ripple effects.
Yeah, I just finished reading a book and I'm gonna forget the name of it, but it's a family from Vietnam. They were boat people and they settled in New Orleans. Well, during Katrina, um, you know, they turn on the radio. Oh my God, there's flooding. Oh my God, we need to leave. Oh my God, I have no place to go. And then they have to be rescued. Like that feels like a blink in the eye. Can you imagine like
Mhm.
waking up, turning on the radio, learning there's going to be flooding, and who thinks that like your whole city and all the homes are going to be destroyed?
Right. Yeah. And just the sheer devastation that came from Katrina and, into New Orleans and Shreveport and all of the surrounding towns, the massive amounts of flooding and houses and entire communities that were essentially just washed away.
Yeah. So clearly a future summit has to be
I
about
agree.
the impact of natural. Yeah, I could do a summit every single day, Haley, and I would not run out of things to talk about in terms of trauma.
Yeah.
So I think I have job security, and I would be okay with having a little less job security. I would love for there to be less trauma?
Right. Yeah. No, I get it. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about my own story, my own family story, the
Mhm.
singular event. It's part of the reason I'm still in business and part of the reason I'm an entrepreneur and why entrepreneurial ventures work so well for me.
I will say I have loved the flexibility of being an entrepreneur. Like there's nobody to fire me, and I'd have to fire myself. I
Mm-hmm.
love that I can change my plan at any point. But I will say that I've only been an entrepreneur for a couple of years now. I was a DoD employee. I was a school therapist before that. I did community health before that. And on the side, I've done adoption and other kinds of work. But now that I'm an entrepreneur, I have so much respect for women and men too, but for women that leave toxic work environments because of harassment or oppression in any kind of way to start out and make their own business. It has been mind blowing, like all the different skills and talents you've got to have to pull this off, or a lot
Mm-hmm.
of money. Like if you have a lot of money, you can kind of delegate and hire out. But when you're first starting out, it's a wowzy. So I have mad respect for your audience of entrepreneurs. It's a lot of work. So yeah,
Yeah.
kudos for those of you who left for whatever reason,
Mm-hmm.
typical jobs. It's amazing.
Well, and I know for a lot of women, family reasons, job loss, health issues, the accident that changed everything. I have a friend whose husband had a traumatic brain injury, one day at work, and they own their own businesses, but he was doing landscaping, and that has totally changed the entire trajectory of their lives as well. So you realize how much, in many ways, we need the flexibility of being an entrepreneur, but it's also in many ways twice as hard or three times as hard or 100 times as hard to be a business owner. I mean, people will ask me, who my boss is, and I'll be like, well, I'm my own boss, but my boss is a bitch.
Mine drives me to work around the clock.
Yeah, mine is demanding, just really, really.
Mine doesn't give me a lunch break.
Yeah, your boss is meaner than mine in some ways.
Don't get
I'm
me
gonna have
wrong.
to talk to your boss.
Yeah, a few people have tried to talk to her, and sometimes she does really great about doing all those self-care practices she teaches her clients. Sometimes she does really great at those, but it's really important to have the reminders to do that, especially if you're a trauma survivor, and I am one as well. So not only am I a personal trauma survivor, I work with trauma survivors most of the day. And so it's super important to do those self-care practices. So I call myself a hypocrite all the time, and I am always self-correcting. I'm still always learning and growing. And the thing I really need to work on is just being, just relaxing with friends. Like the weekend you came to stay, I'm like, yay, there's going to be a friend in the house. So I have to take a break because she's going to want to say hi to me for a minute.
And I was a total distraction most of the
Yep.
time I was there.
Which was awesome.
We got no work done. It was awesome. Yeah. So y'all register. The link is in the comments. It's above, it's below, whichever platform you're on. And check it out. It is a no-cost summit. There are VIP upgrades available, so you want to register for those and get them because there's some amazing resources and things in there for you. So welcome. Thank you, Karen, for doing this with me tonight.
And thank you so much for being not only a speaker, but for sponsoring the event as well. It really means a lot. So thank you.
Absolutely my pleasure. I'm glad to do it. Take care, y'all. Bye-bye.